whenever I was, I had different counselors and teachers and things like that, and they would say, everyone's got a piece of maleness within them. Everybody's got some femininity within them, and so basically, that's finding the balance. Is that what you're
Yeah.
is that what you're saying too? So I can find my femininity or become in touch with my femininity, and that doesn't make me, not a male or something like that.
Well, the she in she dragon is a capital S / capital HE is the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine that are found within men and women. I found first my sacred feminine because my left brain was what do I say? Stripped. The wires were stripped. I lost my left brain when I had that paralysis, and my right brain, my right feminine, taught me it taught me the language of the sacred feminine, is what I call it in my book, through dreams and visions and art and nature and singing, all those feminine activities that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I saw that there was another energy coming through, helping my feminine with logic and reason. And it was like these two people on a dance floor all of a sudden. I'm thinking, who am I dancing with? Who is this person? Who is this thing that's giving me support? It was my male logic coming in. So that's how I was able to identify the two, because I was so lopsided in my right brain that when he came in, I could notice him. So I would love if people could identify, oh, this is my intuition, my feminine side, my feeling side, and oh, this is my masculine, logical thinking side, because that's it. That's your two parts of yourself.
Right.
Is it that simple? Could you identify with that? Can you identify those two parts of yourself, Kevin?
I really believe I can. Now,
Okay.
it doesn't mean that they're always doing a perfect ballroom dance. Let's put. I mean, I like your analogy a lot, but I think sometimes I think that the two sides may be just doing the fox, the box step, back 1 2 1 2, so it's not always as simple as that, but it this is one of those things that at least you and I can say to myself, yes, I do have these characteristics at certain times, and it is interesting that you say that, simply because of the fact that I was raised by my father was a medical student at the time when I was growing up in Ireland, and so he was away a lot, and so and my mom was working, and so my granny and my great granny and the aunts in the village. Again, I grew up in a village with 300 people. I was related to everybody, so everybody was my aunt or
and
my cousin.
Is that in Ireland, Kevin?
Yeah, in Northern Ireland. And
nice.
And so what was funny about that is that although we like to think of things in a very patriarchal way, in Ireland it's still very matriarchal in a lot of ways, and so and so a lot of the things that you got taught were not necessarily by the males in the family, and I because the males were always working, and and the females would teach you how to do things. I mean, I knew how to iron a shirt and cook and bake and everything like that before I was 10 years old, and I think a lot of that just had to do with having respect for yourself, respect for everybody in your family, and contributing to that degree. But that was in the physical tasks and things like that.
Right.
So, but
we're talking about the inner dance.
Right. But in the sense of also intuition and following your and dealing with seeing things from a love side um, or whatever. That was also very, very, very true. And it is interesting because, people say this about Irish people all the time. They're either completely loving types of people, just people that are fun to be around, or else they're completely destructive. I mean, that's there seems to be no in between. You either love them or you hate them, and they either love you or they hate you, and that's kind of the way it is. So, in some degree, it's a little bit of an extreme there, but and in two emotions between love and hate, there's not a lot of logic there. But it is interesting that whenever I had experiences with what I believe to be fairies, or some people have said whenever I've told that story, well, those are gray aliens or whatever, and I've told that story, and they, my female line in my family were very, very supportive, and they never said, you're making it up. This didn't happen. Don't talk about it. But my dad did. My dad told me, just don't ever say anything about it. This is one of those things where that's only going to hurt you by saying, that you've had this experience. So, I mean, it's a very interesting thing, Patricia. It really is. But
Well, there's emotional intelligence when people can accept others and accept differences.
Right.
And we lack a lot of emotional intelligence right now on the planet. But I think we can learn it. We can evolve.
Right.
For me, I continue to have struggles with details. This week I have done so many things, made so many mistakes this week regarding details. It's like I'm not grounded. I'm not on this planet. I'm somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting more and more challenging to do detailed work.
Right.
I think they say the veil is thinning.
Yes.
We said that today, and it's so true. And so how do we function day to day with all these tasks we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
My brain can't do it.
Well, it is. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I have an example that, about I would say 2 or 3 months ago, I went and visited this nice couple that we met, and they said, well, we've got these Bigfoot, and we've got, and they had these other they found these little boot prints all over their house. I mean, not over, outside their house, like little boots, like a size 4 moon boot, and so they don't have any children. Where they live, there are no children around. And, I said, well, that sounds like a fairy to me, which I desperately don't like saying to American people, because I open myself up for that, Disney fairy type idea.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they think, oh, it's Tinkerbell and it's all cute, and I've got these little, winged things living at the bottom of my garden and things like that. Well, that's not quite what tells the whole story, as whenever it comes to that. I mean, fairies in the Irish and Scottish sense, primarily in Ireland, they're a lot nicer than Scottish fairies, just in lore and everything like that. And I think a lot of that is because Irish people are a lot nicer to fairies in Ireland than Scottish people in stories were to Scottish fairies. And so, you kind of get, it's kind of the mirror, you look in the mirror and you get back what you put into it. But what was interesting is that, so we went there, and all I could say is, and in all honesty, all I can say is that these people live in some sort of a vortex. I mean,
okay.
And so it so it was very strange when we got there, because we went there and they said, well, and my wife and I don't sleep in the same bedroom, and that's because I've got, with my PTSD, I roll around, and it's just not good for, she can't get any rest, and God bless her,
Right.
she puts up with me anyway. But but the truth of the matter is I always sleep separate. So they said, well, one of you can sleep upstairs and one of you can sleep downstairs. And they said, well, but there might be a ghost upstairs. I said, well, fine, I'll take it. I've never seen a ghost. famous last words, right? So I said,
okay,
I've never seen a ghost. I'll go up there. Well, I didn't see a ghost then either, but I definitely felt a presence around me and things like that. And so I actually did. I went into this really weird sort of, I don't know how to say, quasi trance. And it was odd because of the fact that I, wasn't myself for the rest of that weekend. And it really, and I thought, okay, well, this is just one of those things where, this will go away with time. And, once I drive away, that's it. But this place seemed to have a real big grip on me like I've never experienced before.
Wow.
And yeah, and it wasn't until I got home that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
How do
know.
we protect ourselves?
I don't.
How do we?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we protect ourselves so that energy can't come through?
Well, I think
that is something I want to find out.
Well, I think what happened was, in a way, I'm a druid, and I can do hand fastings, and so these folks were interested in a Celtic hand fasting, and so I made the mistake of realizing that I was in this vortex type environment and not really, being completely cognizant of it, because I think that, everything really projected itself out at least 10 times more than the average thing. So usually if I describe a ritual, I don't actually feel like I'm invoking, any of the spirits or whatever that you call in to do that, unless you're actually in that moment and you're causing that intent. But I think at that time, just by simply describing it, I put this circle around us, this bubble around us, and of protection. And that bubble traveled. That bubble traveled with me. So it wasn't that I was necessarily in danger. I didn't feel like I was being, attacked or anything like that. But this.
Okay, good.
That it seemed like that bubble of protection splintered off and just kind of went with me. And so it wasn't until we got to my dear friend's house and I got out of the car and she said, "You don't even look like you," And so,
oh, wow.
And she just basically kind of talked me through and said, I need to come back. And then that kind of, closed that up. So I think it is good that when you have, friends that, at least subscribe to some of the same ideas that you have, to really kind of, listen to them, even if you think, oh, well, that can't be. But obviously, in the case of everything, you realize, well, that's whenever I figured out, there's no end of the journey. There's no end of learning, because simply that was something that I hadn't experienced before. But I think that when you're in that situation, and if you go into a place with ghosts or anything like that, and I don't feel like the lady that lived there, or the previous occupant, if you want to call it that, ghost, was any kind of a malevolent being. It was just, she was just sharing space, It wasn't like, any kind of situation where, if you let her alone, then she'll leave you alone. And so, everybody's quite happy to do that, because she actually did do some very nice things for me. She woke me up the next morning whenever I told me I needed to get up, which was odd, because I'd never had I never had a voice in my ear come up and